So this is a little thing that I started literally just a week ago, where I decided it might be fun if I do two things at once, which you're not supposed to be able to do, and do my makeup whilst reviewing and talking about a business book, and to make it more helpful to you to kind of just take the key points of that book and then give you some ideas how you could use that in your business, or even why I don't particularly think it's useful. I decided to do this because in a former world, before FitPro Cookbooks, I used to work in marketing and marketing management, and even lectured in marketing and consulted in marketing. And the other reason I decided to do it was a bit like you guys, following the old gurus, and they're recommending books, and you read the books, and there's sometimes some one or two key gems, and they get lost because you're reading so many of these books. The dog decided to bark at something outside the window. Awesome! Today's book is Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. And it's not really what I would consider a business book. It's a bit more like Start With Why, in the sense that it's more about motivations and sort of entrepreneurship from a spiritual point of view, maybe? I'm not quite sure. It does bring in some business factors, but not ones that are done in a practical, helpful way in that sense. But if you're first starting out with a business, particularly if it's a passion-based business, which obviously a lot of people do, particularly in this niche, then I suppose it might solidify your thoughts, give you some clues, that type of thing. So the big ideas in this book. Right, let's start with the first one that makes me kind of shudder slightly. And that is that business is not about the money. Oh no. So that's kind of, expanded upon within the book. It's about happiness and personal growth and solving people's problems and all that type of thing. And that does get quite a bit of expansion. So the big idea is business should never really be about the money, what you want out of life. It should be more about who you want to be in life. So that links to its other big idea, which is through helping people, you grow yourself. And by doing so, you become a rounder, more mature, wiser person who's more of use to the world. And leave a legacy, maybe, even. And then the third sort of big idea is all to do with this money thing. So it's like you should never do anything just for the money. Now, that's not saying that money isn't a lovely little side product, potentially, but you shouldn't do it just for the money. And I suppose that goes further down the line in business with motivation, because obviously most people, when they tell you to start a business that you're passionate in, and that you will never work a day in your life and all that nonsense, what they seem to forget is whatever you are passionate in, once you start doing it as a business, you might lose your passion for it because other factors come into play, like customers and people and boring things like finance and marketing. And particularly in a smaller business where it's all about your visibility, it can get a little tedious, always having to do, things like this video, where you feel like if I don't have a high profile, I'm not going to make sales because my company doesn't have the budget to run endless anonymous advertising. So the initial concept is where a lot of people start a business, and it's, what am I good at? What am I passionate about? Therefore, if I do a business in this, it's going to be awesome. And as you can tell from my reaction, I'm not really on board with some of these concepts, but never mind, we will keep going because some of you are. So that's the sort of key ideas behind the book. The way this is expanded upon is if you're going to do a business and it's not about the money and it's not about financial gain, what is it actually about? And with this particular business book, it very much emphasises it's about helping people and solving problems. And I suppose in that sense, I'm no different to anyone else. That's where I came at my business from. I saw that personal trainers, whilst they will criticise slimming clubs and the ways a lot of people do try to control their weight loss and say cheap methods don't work, equally when I went to a personal trainer, I found the value kind of really expensive and not as broad reaching as when I'd been to a very cheap slimming club. And I can't even say the results were hugely different. And that could be to do with, I think when you see different results, sometimes it's more to do with personal motivation. Like the more someone invests in something, the more they use it and the more they value it. So if you're going to a £5 slimming club, you're not really investing or losing that much money if it doesn't work. Whereas if you're going to a personal trainer at £40 to £65 an hour or whatever it is, you've got a bit more financial motivation to make that work for you. So I think that's a point of reference, whereas I'm quite a motivated person, so to me paying £5 or paying £40, it doesn't have much difference in my motivation to achieve something. And I just found the value very, very poor, and I found other people struggling with what they can eat because a bunch of macros and eat more protein, have more chicken isn't a meal. And most people that I encountered with my personal trainer were women in their 40s who had families and cooked and had careers and didn't have time to, personal training was the be all and end all in their life, and certainly didn't want the hassle of constantly trying to find a recipe that may or may not fit their training program or what they're being advised to eat. And also it's just more brain power and more effort. When you have a life and it's not your 100% priority because it's not your business, you have other things on your mind, and you don't, at the end of the day, when you're exhausted, want to then have to think, what am I going to eat? Does this fit? Message a friend, does this fit? Am I allowed to use gravy? I mean, just too much. So because when I was working out, I had friends come round and they'd said, does this fit the plan? Because they'd literally been eating chicken and salad and rice. And I went, yeah. That kind of made me realise there was this gap. So it was a passion of mine. Food is a passion of mine. Cooking is a passion of mine, so it fits with this book. And helping people is a passion of mine. And I could either help the women directly, or, as I felt that this should be part of any personal training service, I could offer what I do to personal trainers. So there's your passion, what this book's about, helping people to solve a problem. And as the book says, one of the ideas in the book is you do not need a lot of money to start helping people. So in other words, you don't need the website, you don't need the SEO, you don't need systems, all of that comes in later. You can start just simply helping people, and I would then recommend you keep some evidence of how you've helped people, because ultimately that will be your proof in the future when you've got the business a bit more established. So yeah, that's one of its big ideas, that you should be more about helping people and more about solving a problem. And if you solve a problem, people will find out that you solve a problem and then they will come to you, which is awesome. But there are very, very few problems, and this is my personal thing on this, where somebody else isn't also solving the same problem. Now, when I entered my space, there was nobody else solving that problem. The personal trainers didn't have regular supplies of recipes that fitted their training plans. There is now companies that do that as well as us. But at the time, it was a unique problem to be solving. The other thing to remember about, if nobody else is solving that problem, and this is something that people tend to forget, is there actually a problem to be solved? In other words, you might see a gap in the market, a niche in the market, and go, oh, found it. But that doesn't mean that you're the first person to ever have this idea. Other people may have had that idea, investigated it, and rejected it. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at this solving problems situation, that it sounds great. If I solve someone's problem, I'll build a business because of the process that I'll get known for solving that particular problem. But two things there. Is it a problem that people are willing to pay for to have solved? What are other people doing to solve that problem? Can you do it bigger, better, more effectively, different twist on it, whatever it might be. So as you can see, I'm already arguing with one of the key concepts in the book, but hopefully I'm giving you questions to answer so that you don't have to read the book and go, wow, this is so amazing, this is so exciting. I'm showing you how to analyse its content and question its content from a very pragmatic point of view. One point that I do agree with in the book is it says that success doesn't necessarily come from persistently telling people how awesome you are. And I do a lot of that. But it comes from consistently innovating and looking at and analysing what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, what people appreciate, what people don't appreciate, improving your own skills in what you do and how you deliver what you do, and letting people know about any new changes. And you can see within a year of relaunch and changing how we do things and simplifying things because people found the old system a bit too complex, whatever. We've added more and more products according to the problems people are coming to us with, like literally emailing, saying, do you do this? Do you do that? Now, sometimes often these are one-offs and you have to, on a very pragmatic and practical level, go, well, it would be lovely if we did, but if you're the only person who's going to buy it, it's going to cost us too much to do that and we're not going to get a return on that. And even though this book is all about solving problems and not making money and whatever, ultimately we do have to be practical over that concept and go, yeah, but yeah, but I have bills to pay. And that might be all very well and good for you, but I still have to pay my electric bill. So I can't invest £500, £1,000 in solving one person's email problem if I don't believe there's going to be something else from that, like I will get the money back from extra sales. So always be very, very aware of that. Now, something the book says that I kind of agree with, but then again, pragmatic me kicks in and goes, but, is that the whole point of life is to be happy. And I would agree with that. Who would disagree? The way I tend to go with these new age business books, because they do irk me a little bit, is go, well, that's lovely. Just do what makes you happy. I mean, the book literally says, do what makes you happy. Well, you know, not being funny, but what makes me happy is lying on a beach somewhere hot, having a cocktail or two, reading a book, putting on some sun lotion, reading more of the book, having a nice meal out, chatting with friends, none of which pays any bills. So, yeah, do what makes you happy, but let's all be very, very practical about this. Do what makes you happy. One thing I thought was a bit overly firm was that any business plan that you might write could be considered null and void, because as soon as you meet a customer, everything changes. And that's true if you're starting out and you've got this idea and you test it and you do all the other things you're supposed to do. That's a different book. Sometimes customer problems and the way customers interact and what customers are willing to pay and what something's going to cost you to produce all changes, or even the best place to communicate what you do and market what you do, all changes as you get more evidence. So I wouldn't say having a business plan is a complete waste of time. I would just say, yeah, don't spend too long on it because you're going to constantly change it according to the realities of the world as opposed to the ideal business world. This is to do with personal feeling and emotion. And I think it's very easy to be distracted by gurus. So I get where they're coming from with this one. Gurus will say, oh, you can make X amount of money and do it this way. And sometimes that doesn't align with who you are or what you really want in life. I think far too many of us can get turned on by the idea of a Lamborghini, and actually that's not a motivator for us. So I do understand some of the context of this book. And one of the points it says, if you're going to do a new product or start a business or change something, you should feel yourself personally, wow, I'm very, very excited about what you're going to do, and it gives you a sense of fun and a sense of happiness. Now, I understand that, because obviously if you enter a new project with a sense of dread, you're not going to get very far with that new project. It's going to bore you very, very quickly, and you're going to procrastinate and not necessarily crack on with it and deep dive on it, because we talked about a bit more about deep diving in the last review about the one thing. You're not necessarily going to have that commitment if you're not feeling wow about what you're doing. Equally, I would say, once you've been in a business a few years, and we've been doing something like this for 8 or 9, it's quite hard to hold on to the wow. You know, feedback from customers cheers you up and keeps you going. And that's something else they said to remember. And we do tend to forget this. So this is one for us, is you will get complaints. You'll always get someone who, I don't know, demands a refund that they're not really entitled to, didn't use the product, didn't get how it worked, struggled with whatever. You'll always get 1 or 2 a year. I mean, we're very lucky, we only get 1 or 2 a year. But you do tend to focus on those people, and they taint your feelings about the customers who love you. Because maybe the customers who love you don't tell you often enough, I don't know. But I get what they're saying, that you should not allow the bad experiences from one customer, who could be quite rare, and that is true, to then jade your perception of your customers as a whole. And I'm using customers rather than clients, but it's the same thing. Another thing is that they say about, you know, the one way you get known and the one way you will sell the most products isn't just because you solve other people's problems, but because they will then tell others how you solve problems. I'm a bit 50-50 on this because sometimes people are very, very lovely and shout your company out all the time, and you do get business as a result. But a lot of people don't, and I don't know if it's because we deal with business people and they don't have time, or it's they want it done for them but they never think to do it for others. I'm not quite sure where that comes from. So if you go into this business or a business with the expectation that people will constantly shout you out and give you praise, and word of mouth will build your business, it will, but it won't be as much as you would hope for. And sometimes the people you help the most are the people who say the least. So again, with this book, I think it's a nice spiritual style book, but I'm a bit hesitant on its practical applications. I'm gonna try dabbing this on with a brush because I'm not getting very, this isn't my usual one, and I thought I'd try something different, but well, I have used this before, but I don't know that it's giving me the coverage of the dark circles that I really want to achieve. I'm not sure yet, I have to sit back on that. I know I'm probably using way too much concealer now. At my age, you need a lot of concealing. Care about your customers more than you care about yourself. I think when you first start out, that is quite easy to do. If you start out with this premise of I'm here to help people, I'm here to solve their problems, you will actually genuinely end up caring about exactly that more than you do about yourself. and within that it says, you know, don't run your business like you need the money. Now I understand that as a concept, because as soon as you start sounding desperate for money, and I don't actually believe in the law of attraction, but I suppose it is kind of a law of attraction thing. I think as soon as you start sounding like you need the money, the last thing that's going to happen is you get the money. Obviously, I think the better thing, if you really need the money, is take the actions that will create the money. And if that means caring about your customers more than you care about yourself, which is what this book is saying, then cool, do that. I suppose where I'm differing a lot with this book is I sometimes think that this idea that your form of happiness or your business should only be a means to happiness. I get why people believe that, but I also think, yeah, but you could have a hobby that you absolutely love to do, and your business could just be a way to fund the hobby, and then you're still happy. One sort of key little point they make, which I found out of place with all the other things they were saying, because the other things they were saying were not really for people who've been doing a business for a long time, was they said set up your business so that if you leave it for a whole year, it will still have grown and improved. So in other words, think in terms of teams, think in terms of who you're, you know, what you're doing, who you're employing. They should have the same mantra as you, that everything is for the customer and everything is about solving customer problems. So you should never give someone a position or a promotion or even a bonus or a job if they are not on board with that concept. And then if your whole team is on board with that concept, you could leave the business for a whole year and come back, and that business will have grown, will have developed, and will actually be better. Now, that I find is great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave my business for a whole year and come back and it would be better, because some of the jobs I do, nobody else does. So if I stop doing them, no one's going to do them. But I suppose they would say, well, you're employing someone to do that. Fair enough. The only reason I'm commenting on that is I just found that a bit thrown in there, because I was seeing this book more for beginners or people who need like a little freshen up and a bit of motivation because they're getting a bit, why am I doing this? Now, I've always said, Now, I've always said, if you're not getting what you want from your business, you can either burn it to the ground, and a lot of you do that, which I was surprised at, or you can see it more as a means to an end. In other words, I will still give good service, I will still put my customers first, I will still value what they give me, I will still talk about my business, I will still, improve my business and have the systems to improve my business, but actually, my business is, and it does solve problems, but my business is now about a means to an end. And that actually tends to bring in money. And money in this book seems to be like a bit of an evil. I think with a lot of these business books, it depends on your personality type as to what you get out of them. With this one, I would say the key gems are a reminder that you are there to solve problems. A reminder that if you look, you don't always need money to solve problems. That in a bizarre way, the customer comes first. That some customers are assholes, but don't let that taint you and get you down. And that you will get more if you constantly improve upon what you're doing or bring in new products, change direction according to what problems you're trying to solve, than you will just trying to keep doing the same old thing in the same old way. You will stay excited, you will stay within that wow factor. that went on a bit heavy. Holy shit. I think I'm basically done. I don't think I've missed anything. So that book was Anything You Want by Derek Sivers, and you heard just some of my hesitations around some of the concepts within the book.